Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's 91st webinar and the second in a series of webinars focused on industries with Dani Kaplan and Greg Schlegel. We look forward to an interactive discussion with each and every one of you, and we hope that your family are healthy and safe. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time, and we're going to be focusing today on the automotive industry and how to accelerate the readiness of ERP warehouse management systems that drive real-time visibility, control, optimization of your business processes. Moreover, leveraging best practices based on years of experience in process capability and maturity models to ensure that your return on investment of your ERP will meet your leadership's expectations. We have many best practices we'll share throughout. Please have your questions coming throughout the webinar. We'll answer them as they come and enter them into this chat room, please. Again, we're focused on best practices and how to drive ERP implementations. Again, my name is Jim DeVries, president of Enhanced International Group. EIG is an exchange of passionate experts. We have over 50 consultants, consulting companies, and SaaS providers like Dani and Greg. And EIG serves as a master integrator to provide you access to the best and brightest companies. With that, some introductions. Dani Kaplan from SMC Data. He's 40 years of experience and the last 20 years focused on ERPs with VAI and started at IBM early in his career. Dani, a few words of introduction.
Hi, my background is consulting, and I've been representing VAI, which has single database software for manufacturer distribution food for the past 25 years. It includes warehouse management, which eliminated the need to have a separate warehouse software to create integration issues.
Thanks, Dani. And Greg from the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium, founded in 2010, a celebrated speaker and esteemed author of the book, Supply Chain Risk Management, an Emerging Discipline, which was published in 2015. Greg, a few words of
introduction. You bet. Thanks, Jim. Great to be here with you. I'm the founder of the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. We've been in business for 13 years. We operate in 23 countries. I've taught supply chain risk management at Lehigh University for the last 10 years. I still teach ERM, Enterprise Risk Management, at Villanova University. I spent 8 years with IBM as a supply chain executive consultant. Spent 30 years, perhaps like many of you, as a supply chain exec for several Fortune 100 manufacturers, and I've taught supply chain management at 4 different universities and was president of Apex, now known as ASCM, back in the 90s. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Greg. With that, we'll get into the deliverables today's webinar. First, of course, we're focused on automotive industry challenges. We'll provide you some real-life experiences and case studies. We'll provide you some helpful hints on how to get started in addressing these challenges. And then we'll get into the best practices in ERP capabilities, both from Greg's vast background and Dani's vast background. And then we'll demonstrate how these best practices have transformed companies through best practices. And then we'll work on the power of integrated real-time data and best practices. With that, Greg.
You bet. Real quick thumbnail sketch, folks, of who we are and what we do. We're 32 companies. That's about 1,700 supply chain risk pros around the world. As you can see on the right-hand side, we break our approach into 3 pillars. On the left is education, in the middle consulting, and on the right-hand side, software as a service. On the left, what do we provide? More or less 5 areas. We have online education. We have 2 certificate courses, one for manufacturers, one for public health and service organizations. we do a lot of SCRM journey coaching and consulting. As mentioned, we got a lot of supply chain risk and resiliency solutions to do a lot of heavy lifting. Today, we're going to talk about one of our online readiness assessment tools for supply chain management. And we also have another pure risk assessment tool, which uses AI and ML algorithms to identify your risk maturity, your risk appetite, and your risk culture. So with that, I'll turn it back to you guys.
Dani? We'll just
This is the warehouse management software, which is part of the VAI, single database software. It's a complete warehouse integration with with distribution, manufacturing, food, being a single database, a manufacturing by distributor, a distributor by a manufacturer, and the food company can be both a manufacturer and distributor without having multiple ERP system that creates integration issues. To you, Jim.
thanks, Dani. And a little background on EIG. EIG, again, is a group of 50 companies, consulting companies, and SaaS providers. And we focus from strategy to execution. And today we're talking about a few things here. How ERPs enable your organization to make decisions and drive this value chain, drive your bicycle, so to speak, drive your company. It looks at the analysis of your business functions and giving those tools to help you make better decisions and redefine your execution goals. So EIG is, as we said, a group of consultants and consulting companies and SaaS providers providing you this strategic interplay. We like to say that life is like a bicycle, and to keep on moving, to keep your balance, you need to keep on moving. So we'll keep moving here. Just to give you a little background of the webinar series, we have done the food and beverage early in June. Today, we're doing the industry for automotive, and the industry for the next webinar is electronics, and our final webinar will be in distribution logistics. With that, just to see who's on the call, appreciate everybody entering in their job positions there. So we see quite a group of different groups of people, from supply chain to finance to CEO. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, the more the merrier. We look at we look at multiple disciplines. Our big, you'll hear us talk all during the session, that we kind of view supply chain as end to end. So it's always good to see different disciplines attending and willing to chat with us about good supply chain management.
Dani, your thoughts?
Supply chain became a major issue today, and you need to have integrated software in order to know what to order, when to buy, and how much to buy, and whom to buy. The cheapest vendor is not always the best vendor, because if it has late delivery, it results in order cancellation, excess inventory, and which equals cash flow issues.
Thanks, Dani. Appreciate that insights. With that, we'll get into today's agenda. The automotive business challenges will be our first topic. Then we'll get into best practices and navigating ERP solutions, then into operational and ERP best practices to address the automotive challenges, and then our case studies. With that, we're going to get started with what's going on out there. I think everybody has heard about this. This is not really new news, but we all know that the complexion of a car has changed dramatically as we've moved from the internal combustion vehicle to the electric vehicle and beyond. The internal combustion engine, of course, was actually the second vehicle out there. The electric vehicle was actually the first vehicle out there in the 1880s. Then we moved
Uh-huh.
with this, with maybe somebody might have forgot or not known that oil was then discovered, and then all of a sudden big oil happened, and we moved to the internal combustion vehicle. So it's kind of gone through a loop here, but we know that the chip is going to be fueling the drive of cars in the future, and the dependency on chips and functionality is going to be driving the cars such that the car will be completely transformed. We'll have driverless cars. Who knows? The windows may be touch screens, and you may not even be paying attention to where you're going until you get there. And the whole complexion will change, and it's all going to be fueled by chips. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, you bet. The automobile is turning into one big electronic platform. So it'll be interesting to watch whether it's an ICV or an EV or a combination of both. But the complexion of an automobile is changing rapidly every day.
Dani, what are you seeing out there?
The major issue the automobile are facing today, industry are facing today, is the chip. As a result of not having chip in time, cars sit on the dealer parking lot with the radio missing or navigation missing, and they sell it at this substantial discount. Knowing whom to buy the chip for and when to buy and how much to buy will become a major issue.
Well summarized. Thank you. If you have any comments, please do enter them in the chat. With that, we'll keep moving on trying to identify what your current challenges are. And we have a few in here: shortages, late delivery, rising costs. I'm sure chip shortages is another one. We'll be reviewing this question at the end of this section. So please do enter into poll EV your comments, and we will address those as we end this section. So we're going to kick off this section here talking about the automotive, what automotive executives are talking about, word on the street from them. And this is from the Multidisciplinary Digital Publishing Institute in February of 2023. And there's a number of authors that put this together. And what they found is that, they did keyword search on what executives are focused on. And of course, automotive industry and risk, performance, modeling, design, strategy, safety, stability, simulation, and optimization. In general, the research in the field mainly involves supply chain performance improvement, supply chain operation, supply chain optimization and simulation, supply chain sustainability development, indicating that there's an increasing market competition between enterprises. Researchers are trying to improve the level of automotive supply chain disruption risk management through the above methods. It makes the automobile enterprises maximize the profits while minimizing the cooperation and synergy effect among enterprises, realizing that the optimum development path of automobile supply chain system and helps promote the sustainable development and automobile enterprise in benign competitive environment. A mouthful, but what's very interesting is where they're focused. Greg, a few words from your perspective.
Yeah, two threads. I like this as an academician. It kind of looks like a supply chain network with all the nodes, but the two threads I take from this is one, it's a cause and effect relationship kind of diagram, meaning if this, then this impacts that. As a theory of constraints, Jonah, that's very encouraging to me. And as a risk evangelist, it's very encouraging to us to see risk management, supply chain resilience in the forefront of automotive executive dialogue. So a pretty compelling picture, I think.
Dani, your thoughts?
I see the issue is disruption, exposure, and risk management, because we always come back to the core issue of parts are missing. So the foreign country have issues. China has issue. Manufacturing will move to Vietnam now, and until it does settle down, we're going to have issue in the subject.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Excellent comments. With that, we'll move on. If you have any comments, please do enter them into the chat. And so what we've done is we've broken things out, the risk challenges into 3 levels: strategic, 1 to 5 years; tactical, 1 to 18 months. We'll show that in a minute; and an operational, 1 to 6 weeks. So from a strategic perspective, some of the risks that we've just been discussing is converting supply chain from the internal combustion engine to the electric vehicle. From a tactical perspective, visibility is a hot issue also. What we're seeing is that in the automobile industry, they have not really had visibility into their end-tier suppliers. They've been focused more on their first-tier suppliers, and for those first-tier suppliers to take care of the entire supply chain. And now there's more of a drive to see further down into the supply chain, because supply chains are being rerouted with the change, as Dani mentioned, about moving from China to Vietnam and so forth, and to Indonesia and to India. We're going to see a lot of supply chain shifts, which are driving costs up. And then from an operational perspective, to staying competitive, you know, we discussed the chip shortage. Also, you know, with electric vehicles, we need a big increase in lithium, and the supply is not meeting the demand. So that's another one of the biggest issues. So, Dani, your thoughts on this slide?
Until now, auto manufacturers rely on just-in-time inventory, taking the Toyota model that minimum inventory, maximum cash. Today's reality create a brand new picture. Never mind just-in-time inventory. You have to know when it will come in, where to buy it, and how much to buy. With all the unsettled issues in the world, in Ukraine, China, transfer to India, Indonesia, it become a major bottleneck for the supply chain now.
Thanks, Dani. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, we'll give you the risk perspective on the 3 horizons. From a strategic point of view, going left to right, think of it this way. These are the biggest risks to your organization. We even call them potentially existential, which means if you don't manage it well, you may not recover. In the tactical side, in the middle, these are lower risks to your organization, but they happen more frequently than strategic risks. And these are normally your supplier and your customer risks. And then on the operational side, on the right-hand side, close in, these are still lower risks, meaning the frequency or the risk to the organization is much lower, but the frequency happens every shift. Every shift you go on, there are operational risks. So I just want to give you our perspective and slant on the risks associated with the 3 different time horizons. Jim?
Thanks, Greg. With that, we'll keep moving. If you have any questions or comments or your thoughts on these risks in supply chain, please do enter them into the chat and or the polling question. With that, we'll move on to the next survey question that we actually used in our last webinar. And this comes from McKinsey. And this is a business leader from last year, but still relevant. And the question is, which of the following conditions make your company most vulnerable in value chain disruptions due to any cause, including COVID-19? Of course, we're not worried so much directly on COVID-19, but COVID-19 is still, or derivatives of it, are are still occurring, and China has been plagued with outbreaks recently, which is affecting supply chains. With that, the results of that, McKinsey looked at supply chain vulnerabilities, and these are the different vulnerabilities that they identified, from demand variability, long input lead times, low just-in-time inventory, which is classic automobile, JIT. They really made that their cornerstone. Concentrated production, short shelf life that we talked about in food and beverage is not too relevant for this particular discussion. And as we'll see here, again, this was originally across 4 different business industry groups. This webinar is focused on automobile and assembly, and you can see low just-in-time would obviously become the number one. Demand variability, as we're seeing, they don't really know what the ups and downs of the marketplace are with cars. They said people aren't going to be driving that much, so that people need less cars. But that turned out to be probably a little bit over anxious on their parts, because people still want their cars, and that kind of started the whole chip shortage when they stopped chip production. And then TSMC decided, well, if you're not going to fill up our orders, we're going to make them somewhere else. And then they go, well, no, we want them. Well, too late. And the ripple effect has been going on ever since. So I'll leave it up to Greg. You want to go first this time and give us your insights on this slide?
Yeah, sure. I'll just talk about the top 4. I mean, the number one, low and just-in-time inventory, that's not surprising. Dani mentioned it as well. This industry bought into Lean, Six Sigma, and just-in-time inventory 20 years ago. And so that is the number one impact. It's great for the balance sheet, but normally an OEM automobile assembler can only handle a shortage of parts in about 1 or 2 shifts, and then they have to send people home. So that's not surprising as well. The other second one is demand variability, and that's all, as Jim said, all dealing with the economy. High interest rates, high inflation, and a strategic new player called electronic vehicles. So not surprising there. And then the 3 and 4 level, which is sole sourcing, long input lead times, those are impacts from basically the number 1 and number 2 issues. So they have their hands full. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you. And Dani, your thoughts?
The main issue of the pieces on the graph is the reality in China, the fact that the COVID start again there, and companies are starting to move to different part of the world, like Mexico or Indonesia, to produce the parts, will create a havoc. But until the factories are built and production settle down, we're going to have a huge variation of parts missing, which will affect the production line.
Excellent, Dani. Thank you. Great insights, guys. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move on to what your current challenges are. I see shortages, late deliveries, rising costs. Anything else come to your mind, Dani, as we wrap up this section?
The main issue I can see is late deliveries, because before COVID, people will tell the vendor, give me the best price, drop ship to the warehouse, and not worry about it. Today, the different reality is drop ship to the customer, like the Amazon issue, the web issue. And late deliveries create a brand new reality now that order gets canceled. Either the consumer cancels the order or the chain store cancels the order, which both result in excess inventory and the warehouse exploding with the inventory.
Excellent. Greg, your thoughts?
That's great. Good to see risk management coming in there. what we're talking about is uncertainty, and that relates to a risk and being able to make some hard decisions, especially relating to sole sourcing and sourcing across the pond and redesigning one's raw material or component part supply chain. So there's a lot of consternation going on. We know that. Call it transformation, but a lot of supply chain redesign going on, especially in the supply base in this industry.
Excellent. And that kind of leads into a question in the chat. It says, isn't the key question on tactical to know who the end tier supplier is for each tier 1 supplier, or are you talking about managing the end tier supplier yourself? Do you want to answer that, Greg, or do you want me to?
It's a $64,000 question. Yes,
Yeah.
what we know about the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, the assemblers around the globe, they're pretty comfortable with their visibility in tier 1 folks. But again, you go down tier 2, 3, 5, some organizations, I'll mention a name like BMW, which we think is an exemplar in supply chain risk management. They're comfortable about level 7, level 8. So yes, you have risks the farther you go upstream to your supply base, and that's somewhat of the bane of all supply chains across all industries, not just automotive.
Yeah, and I just would build on that and to say that it's not just knowing who the supplier is, but understanding what part numbers are associated with those and understand if they, down to the BOM level, and are they sole source suppliers? So it's not just knowing who the suppliers are, it's knowing what they can deliver in the alternatives and how they're performing today at the SKU level. So it's quite complex to be able to see all that visibility, and it's a lot of work and a lot of contract challenges of suppliers giving up who the suppliers are. They're worried about you going around them, but that visibility is necessary to know if they can even deliver what they expect to deliver from a risk management perspective. Greg, any other closing thoughts on what I said?
I would add one more thread, and that is where. The key in risk management, folks, is where is the supplier? What country?
Perfect.
Where are they?
Perfect. Thanks for closing that out. With that, we'll move on to our next section, best practices in navigating ERP implementation. With that, we're going to kick it off with Greg.
You bet. We'll talk a little bit about current business operations or processes. We like to talk about business priorities, best practices, and performance metrics. But here's the thread from our point of view. Speed is life in supply chain and supply chain risk. That's why we as an organization developed a quick hit maturity assessment tool to understand your as-is condition relative to the process maturity in your supply chain. So once you complete that assessment, you get a visual profile of your process strengths and weaknesses. We'll provide an automotive example of that assessment in a minute, but think of it. Why do the assessment? It's to drive good decision making in terms of perhaps what ERP module will bring the biggest bang for the buck in terms of bottom line benefits to you. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Dani.
Supply chain issue became a major thing companies have to consider today. Many companies buy software, which is they get a slideshow without addressing the business issues. And second thing is you have to change your business to fit the software, a round peg in a square hole. What they end up is software that misses pieces, like a warehouse management. And then they would buy a standalone warehouse management, which creates integration issue. Integration issue result in Oklahoma is overstack, Wisconsin understack, and there is no visibility of both warehouses. Or in a local place, they think they have 100 pieces of inventory, they found 10 or 300. It's a huge issue. The implementation is a very major factor. In order to avoid business disruption, we create a test environment, convert the data into it. The data get verified, the user get trained, the user in a test environment, so does not affect the operation. And before they go live, we make sure everybody's proficient, and if they are not, we postpone by a month. And after they go live, the technical team and support team stay on staff. To you, Jim.
Thanks, Danny. And just to close it out, really, it's the combination of having both understanding of your best practices with the ERP integrated that's going to create that aligned action planning, because you want aligned, fast action planning. You can have a great ERP, but if you don't have the best practices built into your operations, you won't be able to take advantage of all that, the fantastic work of a good ERP. The real-time visibility that you gain from VAI is key here for all of the inventory as it moves through the system. And then self-generating aligned improvements is where we come in from an enhanced national group perspective to drive that accelerated performance, to drive those fast track tailored VAI, ERP, MRP implementations aligned to your business capabilities and priorities. So with that, we're going to move to the next section. But before we do that, we do have a question in the chat of how would you assess an IT risk vulnerability within the context of supply chain risk management? Greg, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is, IT is part of supply chain risk management. I would agree with that. Essentially, the reason is most bad guys don't go into the Ford, break into the Ford firewall. They go upstream to your weakest supplier, your smallest supplier, and that's how they gain access into the network and then creep all the way back. So we know it, about 80% of all data breaches go through the supply chain, no matter what industry you're in. And so the IT portion of identify, assess, mitigate, and manage risks is all part of the supply chain. Granted, it's outside of operational supply chain, but both supply chain operations and the IT folks have to be working together because it is part of a good supply chain risk management approach. I hope I answered the question.
Very good. Danny, do you have anything to add to that?
The main issue is having real-time information of what you have in inventory, what to buy, how much to buy, and whom to buy. It became a major issue now because not having real-time information creates either excess inventory or short of inventory.
Okay, thank you, Danny. With that, we'll move on to the next section, operational and ERP best practices to address automotive challenges. And with that, Greg, this is your slide here.
You bet. You bet. We thought we'd give you some further insight on our supply chain process maturity tenets that are inside our free assessment tool. This assessment tool we're talking about, and we're going to share it with you in a minute in terms of graphical output, is free. You can go into our website and you could certainly march through and navigate through to test the metal, if you will. But from a strategic, tactical, and operational point of view, here are the tenets. In strategic, we have three. Executive leadership, balanced scorecard, which is a framework we like, and intentional redundancies within your supply base. On the tactical side, we have 5. Demand management, meaning how do you work with your customers? What industry are you in? Number 3, information system, how sophisticated are they? Number 4, integrated supply chain. Do you take an end-to-end view of your supply chain? And then the 5th one is risk mitigation planning. Do you do it at all? And then on the operational side, on the right-hand side, we have 5 more. First is supply chain process. What do you do and how do you do it? Another one is supply base. How do you treat your suppliers? S&OP, which stands for Sales and Operations Planning Processes. Do you have one? That's where you balance demand and supply on a regular basis. 4th is logistics. How do you handle inbound and outbound freight? And then the last one is agility. Is your supply chain agile or not? So we wanted to give you a sense of the 13 tenets. Remember, it's free. If you need to get in there, you just contact us and you can navigate. So I'll turn it back over to Dani.
This is the VAI software, which is real-time information, has wall-to-wall software from analytic, supply chain, warehousing, accounting, to remote location visibility, which is very important factor. Having integrated software gives you a full visibility of all your location, where the inventory is, how much to buy, and whom to buy. Next, Jim. This is a detail of the flow chart. It's single database for manufacturing, distribution, food, has financial and retail service. Some manufacturers guarantee their product, so if they repairs, the separate module that will take care of it. Next, Jim.
Thank you, Dani. And so with that, what we did was we aligned, Greg went through the readiness assessment tenants, and Dani went through the modules. Now we're aligning those to the supply chain vulnerabilities that we discussed at the beginning here of this section. And so the first, the top one we talked about is just in time, and I'll turn it over to Dani to talk about how his modules addressed just in time inventory. Dani?
The just in time inventory issue is addressed by having real-time information. Using the IBM Cognos Analytic gives you full visibility of the whole operation. What's in inventory, how much to buy, whom to buy, when to buy, and customer history of payments. The database is all in English, so the end user can create pie charts, graphs, and if the banks need information from you, like the financials or inventory, give me 10 minutes and I will download your spreadsheet and email it to you. Not having it, the banker will tell you, don't bother to do it, go to second market, because my auditor will turn you down.
Great, Dani. Nice. Greg, your thoughts?
On mute. It's the #1 issue. I can see why. And in the assessment tenets, we go through questions of discovery to essentially say, how do you handle your logistics, both inbound and outbound? Not who you use, but how do you handle it? What are your processes? Are your suppliers across the pond and so forth? So we think we're kind of we're nicely aligned with 1, the McKinsey supply chain vulnerabilities, and then 2, the VAI modules that actually support and improve these vulnerabilities. So
thanks, Greg. With that, we'll go to the next group, or next one is demand variability. Dani, you want to kick us off again?
Demand reliability has become a major issue today because you have to know what the customer buys, at what region. Florida in the winter buys air condition, Northeast buy heater. And not having real-time information of nationwide what people buy, you end up with like Best and Beyond that cater to the upper echelon customer and end up going out of business. It's crucial to know having real-time information of what you have in inventory, what to buy, whom to buy, and who will buy it. That becomes a major issue today. Next, Jim.
Yeah. Greg, your thoughts on demand
Yeah,
management?
just I'll piggyback on Danny's comment. Again, with the economy issue, with the strategic issues of ICV versus EVs and so forth, there's a heck of a lot of demand variability and volatility going on right now. We would recommend, and we ask these questions, get closer to your customer from a information transparency point of view. Get closer to your customer because it's going to be critical.
Thanks. And we'll just do one more. You can choose one of these, Danny, or both. Maybe just choose one of these two to emphasize for VAI, and we'll close out this. For either sole sourcing or long input lead times. Why don't you choose one of those and talk about how VAI provides help?
The long import time is the major issue, which VAI provides the information who to buy, how much to buy, and when to buy. Because if the vendor does not have good reliability track record, it's going to end up with excess inventory, order cancellation, and cash flow issues.
Thanks, Danny. Greg?
I would pick up on long input lead times as well. We talked about the supply base. It is going through a transformation for a myriad of reasons. The issue is where are your suppliers? What country? How good are they? And get transparent, get visibility within them, however you can, because what you don't know about your supply base from a risk point of view can and will hurt you.
I think this dovetails, your response dovetails well with the question that was just asked in the chat. What will be the ideal resiliency strategy for supply chain vulnerabilities caused by global sourcing?
That's again the $64,000 question. I would say, I would reiterate, the issue is who is your supplier? Then what do they supply you? How good are they? And where are they? From a long-term point of view, all right, what kind of risks are associated with your supply base from tier 1 to tier N? And that's what we talk about. A major transformation for a myriad of reasons is going on right now with the industry, automotive industry supply base. That's the best answer I can give you.
And of course, the sole sourcing is something to be looking out for, obviously, right?
Yeah, sole sourcing is better than, or sole sourcing and single sourcing. They're two different things. Sometimes single sourcing is by design. You decide this is my supplier, and I'm going to dump all my requirements on him. Sole sourcing says, hi, I have a patent. I'm the only guy to make it. You got to buy from me and you'll get what you get. Not pretty, but they are different.
Absolutely. And strategies need to be developed aligned to those. With that, there's a lot more to talk about. Welcome your questions in the chat or follow up. Feel free to give us a call on those. We will now enter into the case studies and kick it off with Danny on his first case study. Danny?
That's a case study of a auto supply, major auto supply that were able to use the VI software and got very good result. On the left side, you see the modules that the software has and what the user get. The advanced graphic in the interface GUI, a major issue, leads into the inventory management because it gives you a full visibility of what you have in inventory, when to buy, how much to buy, and whom to buy. The e-commerce order become another issue. People buy on the internet and return it, which create the backlog in the warehouse, excess inventory, and room to store it. The solution for it is having a retail module that the inventory can be sold in the shopping mall which help you get rid of the inventory. And the third analysis is another important issue, knowing what to buy, whom to buy, and what region will buy. Next, Jim.
You want to go through your challenges and results?
No, we can, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Another issue is companies are growing very fast in today's reality. And some of them are buying inventory, are buying other M&A. M&A is a typical story today. The lawyer worry about the contract, the banks worry about the money, and the accountants worry about the bottom line profit, the bottom line, which result in multiple issues. If you don't have the ability to have one system that will accommodate manufacturing and distribution with one software, we have integration issues of multiple software. Not having real-time information is another issue that the bank affects the bank when they ask you for information and it will take me 2 days to give it to you. They tell you go to another vendor. And the benefits, it's a full software from order entry to purchasing to analytic to web to inventory to purchasing. It's one-stop shopping which fully integrated. The RFID issue, a client does not have to use a $3,000 RF gun. They can use a $400 phone, which is today's reality of people quitting the job quickly, and RF gun requires a lot of training. When a smartphone requires no training and achieve the same result, a $400 smartphone replaces a $3,000 RF gun.
Thanks, Danny. And what I love about this is it focuses on that single moment of truth that everybody needs to make informed decision. Next case study, Danny.
This is a case study of a company, an engineering company that has both companies and have multiple modules that help them include the warehouse management and the manufacturing, which is a major piece. A lot of companies buy software like NetSuite, which has no good integration to manufacturing. Or other companies buy software that doesn't have full warehouse management, and that creates an integration issue. In the case of Kaufman, they were growing very quickly, and they have to need the ability to know what the cost is for each item, and the VAI software gave them that issue. In today's world, a company might have 100 users, and by the competition might be 300 users. But having unlimited upfront users, they don't have to worry about paying again. A case study, I bought a client 10 years ago called VAI. I'm sorry, called the Imperial Dead. They grew from $100 million to $1 billion in 10 years. And in a company that does an analysis, they got ROI in 1 year, $1 million. So that's the main issue, keeping up with the market and having the ability to use the supply chain effectively. That would help Kaufman in their acquisitions.
Thanks, Danny. Greg?
Yep, you bet. I'm back. This is an automotive use case from our point of view, looking at supply chain processes. You can see the chart on the right. We consider this particular automotive company a mainstay. We segment the companies into 4 segments, essentially leaders, mainstream, apprentices, and ring of fire. And so essentially this particular organization who went through the free assessment, and I believe you have the free assessment URL up in the top in the middle. This company came out to be a mainstream. We calculated at 4.34. You can see in the chart goes from 0 to 10 from the middle of the chart all the way to the edges. This organization we consider mainstream. Essentially, remember the closer you are to the center of the chart, the more mature your processes are, and vice versa. So what we do is we calculate where a company might be on the total supply chain process maturity level. And then what you also see is you see blue, red, and green superimposed on top of the black line. The black line on the chart are the answers from this company associated with each individual tenant and their process maturity as they see it. Then we superimpose the strategic, tactical, and operational strengths on top of the as-is condition. So the net is it depicts the strengths in terms of leadership, or strategic, tactical, and operational. And essentially, you can get a picture image of the strategic, tactical, and operational from a second slide here, where we calculate the strategic, tactical, and operational strengths, each one, the three different groups of tenants. And essentially, this particular automotive company had a strength. You can see the lower the number, the stronger the tenants. They were very strong strategically on the bottom right. But what we look at is, where is the largest area of improvement to your supply chain processes? And that for this organization is operational at 4.49. So we kind of do the as is, and also the strengths in terms of strategic, operational, and tactical. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dani.
Those are cannot start video. Those are case studies of VAI clients. The first one is Imperial Dead, which I bought 10 years ago, who grew the business from $1 million to $1 billion, from $100 million to $1 billion. And here is the cost saving by an independent evaluation company. The second one is Black River, which is a funny story. The owner talks about him and his partner with ski bumps, and the 1976, and they bought a VW van for $600, selling produce to the local restaurants. Today it's a $100 million company. Natural Food is a manufacturer that has warehouse integrated into the software, and those are the issues they got. And Autumn Cosmetics is another manufacturer, and again, warehouse management saved $100 million a year. And Dorsey is a distributor. So as you can see, from the food industry to manufacturing to distribution industry, the VAI single database software accommodates all the inventories, all the companies, without having to have multiple ERP systems when the M&A happens. To you, Jim.
Thanks, Dani. And with that, Greg will talk a little bit about STO as it relates to the improvements. Greg?
Yeah, sure. We thought we'd wrap it up with taking a look at, we picked one tenant or one element from each of the strategic, tactical, and operational sectors, and profiled what improvements can be achieved through supply chain maturity. So on the top left, strategic, we picked leadership. Leadership drives metrics, higher margins. If you go from, as we go left to right, if you go from bottom to average to mainstream, and mainstream to best in class, you can see the percent improvement of higher margins in your organization across all SKUs. The second is tactical in the middle. We chose demand management again, how you interact with your customer. We took a metric on time in full called OTIF. You can see where organizations are stratified within our benchmarking tool. And you can see the on time in full percentages over time, and you can see the improvement from 49% to even 97% plus. And finally, down the bottom, operational, we picked supply chain processes, and under that, it's what kind of inventory do you have, what level, and less inventory is better for the balance sheet. It does spark some potential shortages, but you can see that if you improve your supply chain processes, the level of inventory can be decreased anywhere from 2 to 4%, 5 to 8, or 15% with some of the best-in-class folks. So our question to you is always, what is supply chain improvement worth to you? So we wanted to share that with you. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Greg. And to wrap it up, we have a summary slide here. We'll look at, again, how best practices and drive ERP implementations. And it all starts with your goals, understanding your goals of your company, your vision, your mission, what your infrastructure is, what your identity, what you're going for. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Yeah, again, why are we talking about business processes and supply chain process maturity? Because we want to give you an opportunity to drive good decisions in terms of what ERP module might bring the biggest bang for your buck in terms of bottom line benefit. And with that, I'll turn it to Dani.
Sorry about that. My video is turned off, Jim.
Yeah, you can turn it back on.
Okay. The major issue is they have the fully integrated software with a warehouse management. It gives you quick deployment, rapid ROI, and end-to-end supply chain software solution. The supply chain is a major issue today the company are facing, and without having real-time information, it's become a real bottleneck.
Thanks, Dani. So in summary, it's where do you want to go overall? And then from the consortium's perspective, it's are you ready to get there with the assessment and that readiness of your organization? And then when you do get there, how to get to what you want to get to, which is execution of your company. So what we're offering here is an integrated business readiness program to maximize your ERP, WMS, return on investment effectiveness. And with that, we close it out today. These were our deliverables for today's webinar. I hope you found it to be beneficial and that we met your expectations of the webinar. Feel free to follow up with each and every one of us. We have a webinar coming up at the end of September, which will focus on the electronics industry. And with that, Dani, any closing comments?
No, I'm looking forward to meeting everybody in the next webinar, and I hope they found it informative.
Thanks, Dani. And Greg?
You bet. We talked about supply chain process maturity, why to ensure your survival and to thrive in the post-pandemic arena by selecting the right ERP module that will drive quick hit benefits for you. That was our gist of our discussion, and thanks a lot for attending.
Thanks, everyone. And just to wrap it up, don't forget we have the free assessment, supply chain management assessment. We have the VAI real-time driven, not just ERP, but ERP solutions with warehouse management systems integrated to provide you that low cost, high return on investment solutions. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to your questions, follow up, as well as seeing you at the next webinar.